Hey Scrabble fans, after almost 3 years, it's finally time for another episode of Better Know a Letter, and we're going to start up again with a doozy, the S. You might have noticed that I put the S in a category called Power Tiles. After a closer look, you'll quickly see the S seems out of place here. Why is it with these high point monsters? It's only worth 1 point. Well, let's start with an example. Let's say the word archival is on the board. You could add an R in the middle of this word to make the totally different word arch rival. But if you tried this in a Scrabble game, your opponent might slap you. Scrabble focuses on letters you can add to the front or back of words that are already on the board. We call these hooks, and the S is by far the best letter for this purpose. Here's a list of the most common letters that can be placed at the end of words, which we call back hooks. The S absolutely dominates every other letter. That's because in English, nouns and verbs both inflect with an S at the end. If you're a longtime player, you probably already understand this, but you might not know that the S is also the most common front hook letter as well, with more than twice as many words that can add an S in front than the next closest letter. When Alfred Mosher Butts was developing Scrabble, he literally counted the letters in the words in the newspaper to come up with how many copies of each letter he wanted in the set. For example, just under 12% of the letters in English language are E's, and unsurprisingly, there are 12 E's in English language Scrabble. On the other hand, over 9% of the letters in English are S's. But after playtesting, Alfred reduced the number of S's in the set to just 4 because having too many of them was making the game too easy. That's primarily because it's such a powerful hook. Unsurprisingly, the S is by far the most commonly seen consonant in 7 and 8 letter words. Only the E appears more often in long words, but the S is such a powerful hook that it greatly increases your odds of the words you find actually fitting on the board. The S meshes well with almost any other letter in longer words, but there are exceptions, like the G and D, which are associated with entirely different suffixes, like ing and ed. But even these anti-synergies are quite mild. Not only that, the S works well with many high-scoring tiles in short words as well, like the K, H, and W. You'll also have many opportunities to use it in conjunction with your highest scoring letters to access scoring spots that would otherwise be out of reach. Because of the low number of S's in the tile set, it benefits from decreased likelihood of duplication. Unlike a tile like the I, which duplicates poorly and has 9 copies in the tile set, the S can be held in reserve on your rack with a much lower chance of duplicating. One of the most common mistakes newer players make is parting with their S for only a couple extra points. It's far too valuable to be used this way, and it's much safer to keep on your rack than the other good bingo tiles. On the other hand, when you do draw multiple S's on your rack, your decisions can get complicated. Normally, you'd want to use one of your duplicated tiles ASAP. This applies to the S as well, but at higher levels of play, using an S for a relatively low score is a very strong indicator that you have another one in reserve. Your opponent can use this information to adjust their play accordingly, avoiding playing words that hook with an S and even blocking S hooks already on the board. The S can also be tricky because of how board dependent it is. On certain boards that lack any good S hooks, it can sometimes be more expendable than usual. When you have an S, try doing this quick check. If you did draw a 7-letter word ending in S, where would it play? If there isn't a good spot, consider creating an S hook for yourself to use, or maybe use it for a modest increase in score now instead. Lastly, the S is a powerful tile for setups. This can be done at any point in the game, but is especially strong when you have the 4th and final S on your rack. In these instances, you can create extremely high scoring spots on the board which can only be accessed with the S that you hold in reserve. Executing setups like this can win you games you might otherwise lose, and no other letter enables them nearly as often as the S. All right, let's recap. The S is a phenomenal bingo tile, not only appearing in the majority of 7 and 8 letter words in the dictionary, but also allowing those words to play significantly more often thanks to its ability to hook. It's also a fantastic scoring tile, meshing well with many high-scoring letters and allowing you to play other power tiles in otherwise inaccessible spots. Yes, it can introduce some complicated decisions when you draw more than one or when you're facing difficult boards, but it can also offer you pathways to win games via setups that few other letters can. Without question, the S is a 5-star tile. Hopefully now you can understand why I've placed it in the power class with other tiles that have enormous scoring upside. But the S is actually the most valuable tile in this group, offering an incredible array of advantages that more than make up for its 1-point value. Treat it like the precious, powerful resource that it is, and you'll quickly see an improvement in your game.